Everyone remembers Delenn as the peacemaker, the one who built the alliance, the one who stood between two species and held them together with her bare hands, the woman who ended the war. She also started it, not by accident, not by standing aside while others decided. When the Minbari Grey Council voted on whether to destroy the human race, that vote came down to one person, and she voted yes. This is the single most important decision in the history of Babylon 5, and almost nobody talks about who actually made it. She did. To understand how, you have to know who Delenn was before any of it. She was young, quiet, religious caste and acolyte, not a leader, and she had a mentor. His name was Dukat, and he was the most beloved Minbari alive. The closest thing the ancient people had to a great soul. He had picked this shy young woman out of nowhere and pulled her upward, challenging her, refusing to let her hide. And there is a detail here that changes everything that follows. When the Grey Council debated whether the Minbari should make contact with a raw new species called humans, the answer from every caste was no. The workers feared them. The religious caste feared their beliefs. The warriors thought them primitives. Dukat disagreed, and he turned to Delenn, still just an acolyte, and asked her to make the case in front of the Nine. And she did. She stood up in front of the rulers of her entire civilization, and argued that the greatest enemy is the unknown, so should they not learn everything they could about these humans? Delenn is the reason the Minbari went looking for us. What she didn't know was why Dukat cared so much. He had been in secret contact with the Vorlons, and they had told him something he kept even from her, that the humans would be essential in a war that was coming, against an ancient darkness beginning to stir. Everything Dukat was building pointed toward making friends of the human race before that storm arrived. In 2245, a Minbari fleet carrying the Grey Council met human ships for the first time, and the Minbari did something they believed was courteous. Their warrior caste tradition was to approach with gunports, open an old proud gesture of respect. The human commander, Captain Michael Jankowski, saw active weapons pointed at his ships and panicked. Dukat realised the mistake instantly. He gave the order to close the gunports. He was seconds too late. The human ships opened fire. The blast tore through the Minbari flagship, and Dukat was mortally wounded. He died in Delenn's arms, and as he died, he tried to tell her something. He whispered 4 words to her, "You are a child of Valiant," and she did not hear them. She was too far inside her own shock to register the sound. She would not learn what he had said for more than a decade. What happened next took minutes. The Grey Council convened around the body of their leader and deadlocked, perfectly, 4 against 4. 4 wanted vengeance, 4 wanted a diplomatic answer, and one member came to Delenn, standing there with her mentor's blood still on her, and asked her to break the tie. She broke it for war. In her own words, years later, the council was divided. Mine was the deciding vote. They killed Dukat. I was furious. I never knew I was capable of such rage. All I could see was death. But here is the part that matters, and it's the part almost every retelling gets wrong. Delenn did not vote for genocide. She voted in blind grief to follow those ships back to their base and strike it down without mercy. One base. One act of vengeance for one murdered man. She did not order the extermination of the human race. That is what her vote became. Because Dukat's death didn't just wound the Minbari, it broke them. Their greatest soul had been cut down by strangers for no reason at all, and the entire species went mad with grief. A punitive strike became a holy war, and the war aim became simple and total. Every human, every colony, Earth itself, erased. Delenn came out of her rage within weeks, and then she had to watch what she had done. She could not rescind the vote. She tried. For 3 years she was among the loudest voices on the council pleading for it to stop, and for 3 years the machine she had started rolled forward without her. Humanity was being ground into nothing, and when a fellow councillor came to her near the end and told her that her holy war was almost won, Delenn gave the only answer she had left. But are we any longer holy? Then came the Battle of the Line. The Minbari fleet reached Earth. Humanity threw everything it had left in front of them pilots who knew they were going to die, volunteering in droves to buy a few more hours. They were slaughtered. Earth had, at most, hours remaining, and it was Delenn who suggested capturing a human alive for interrogation about Earth's defences. By pure chance, the pilot they pulled from the wreckage was a man named Jeffrey Sinclair. They scanned him with a triluminary, the sacred Minbari artifact, and it lit up. Delenn scanned him herself and declared what it meant. This human carried the soul of Valiant, the most revered figure in all of Minbari history. Minbari's souls were being born into human bodies. Their most sacred law was that Minbari do not kill Minbari, and for 3 years they had been killing nothing but. Delenn ordered the surrender. At the moment of total victory, with Earth defenceless beneath their guns, the Minbari stopped and went home. One of their war leaders, Sinaval, refused the order and took his own life rather than obey it. She started that war, and she is the reason it ended. Everything Delenn did for the rest of her life is built on top of that vote. She entered a chrysalis and remade her own body into something half-human, becoming, physically, the bridge between the two species she had set against each other. She was cast out of the Grey Council for it. She fell in love with a human, John Sheridan, and married him. She built the Interstellar Alliance out of the wreckage of a galaxy at war, but she never told anyone what she had done. For years, the most important fact about Delenn stayed locked inside her, and the person she feared telling most was the one who never left her side. Lenia was her aide, her protector, and the man who had pledged his life to her without conditions. He was also Minbari, and he had lost family in that war relatives killed aboard a ship destroyed by human forces. When Delenn was finally forced to relive her own memories in a Minbari ritual called the Dreaming, with Lenia standing beside her as her guide, he saw the whole thing. The gunports, Dukat dying, the Deadlock Council, and Delenn screaming for blood. She had tried to leave him behind precisely so he would never see it. She warned him that understanding her could be dangerous. He came anyway. And when it was over, Lenia looked at the woman who had started the war that killed his own family, and said something she was not prepared for. He told her the fault was not hers, that she had not been thinking clearly, that the humans had misread a gesture of respect, and that she had been broken by grief in the moment she was asked to decide. He did not forgive her. Exactly, he did something harder. He refused to let her carry it alone. And then, at last, she learned what Dukat had whispered as he died. You are a child of Vailian. Delenn is a descendant of Vailian who had been born a human. There was human DNA in her blood and in her cells the entire time. She voted to exterminate humanity while already being, in part, human herself. Her mentor spent his last breath trying to tell her exactly that, and the one thing that might have stopped her hand was the one thing she couldn't hear. There is one more person in this story. The gunner who physically fired that first shot was a young man named David McIntyre, and the guilt of it destroyed him. Years later he sought Delenn out, to hand her a ceremonial sword as an act of penance, never knowing that he was standing in front of the only other living person carrying the exact same guilt, from the opposite end of the same 3 seconds. So no, Delenn didn't try to stop the war. She started it, in the worst moment of her life, over the body of the man who made her. And then she spent every year that followed becoming the only person in the galaxy who could end it. That's not a peacemaker's story. It's something much rarer. It's what Atonement actually looks like when you can never ever take it back.